This is Alex with Cavallo Home Services. We're on site at a completed deck project in Edgewater. For this project, we did a very custom deck with mahogany decking and custom cedar railings. It's about 1,100 square feet total. Got some really custom components, got some curves, got a big staircase. Let's take you through it. So this is the main area of the deck here. Quite a large area with the mahogany decking. It's really important that you seal the ends with an end grain sealer. In this case, we used Anchor Seal, and what that does is it helps prevent the boards from checking, which just means cracking and expansion and contraction as part of like weather systems. So that's very important whenever you're working with hardwood. It's a very expensive product. Obviously, you don't want to ruin it. So one thing you may notice about this main area, as well as the rest of the deck, there are no visible fasteners. And that's because we used this. This is called a Deck Master bracket. I believe they're manufactured by Grabber. And essentially what this does is it screws into the side of the joist right here. And the manufacturer specifications do every other hole. And then the joist will sit in here like this would be the top of the joist right here, and the decking sits right on that. Then they have another special screw that goes up at an angle from the bottom and screws up into the deck board from the bottom. It ended for a pretty clean look. Looks real nice, but I will say, maybe it was just because this deck was very large. I hate it and took forever. So I will never use these again, even though they do look really nice. But we spent probably 3 days total. It's 3 days straight of just installing brackets. It took forever. So, and then you have someone up here cutting and laying the decking in place, and then someone underneath who's up on a ladder screwing up through the bracket like this and into the deck board. It was pretty interesting. Definitely a slow install, but it did make for a pretty nice result. The main feature of this main area is the curved railing. Now this deck was actually a repair where we took everything out except for the framing and the 4x4 posts. So we had to use the old railing to take this in, get these curves laminated. This is cedar top and bottom. Got those laminated to match the existing radius, and then we had those installed. Curve on this side, and then we have the curve on this other side as well. Whoever built this, they did a pretty nice job. That all 6 of these sections, these railing sections, are all like pretty even. So that the railing definitely made things pretty interesting. These curved railings took a lot of time to get correct. So one of the major components of this project, because this was a repair and we had an existing deck here, this gazebo was already in place. Now you may notice that the gazebo does not have any gutters. This posed a major problem for us as water was flowing off here and it was coming down heavy and it was hammering this area here. It actually flowed underneath this wall and rotted the decking inside the gazebo. So the biggest challenge on this project was taking out and removing the decking underneath this wall and underneath this door, and then getting the new decking underneath. Very difficult. Took 2 or 3 days just to deck this area here because of how technical and how difficult that was. Getting this thing jacked up temporarily to slide those boards underneath. We're going to take you inside and show you how we did it. All right, first off, sorry about the lighting. It's absolutely abysmal in here. I look like a burnt orange right now. No, all right, we're good. So the difficulty, like I mentioned, was getting the boards underneath this gazebo wall. The decking had rotted about 2 feet into the gazebo. This decking was already in here. It's in perfectly fine shape, nothing wrong with that. So what we did was we snapped a chalk line right here, cut this in a straight line, and installed this perpendicular breaker board first. Then we removed the boards one at a time, removed one board, and we slid a new board in and made it so it was square to this perpendicular breaker board. And we did that all the way down. But you can see the extent of the water damage and how it really really damaged the wall, just the paneling. The actual framing of the wall seemed fine, but that was a problem, and the decking was a major mess in here, but this is a pretty clean detail, and it looks much better. This is like, I don't know, 100 degrees and 2,000% humidity right now. It's like been like that for this entire project. So anyway, when you're out of the gazebo here, of course, this is the other gazebo wall, opposite from where the door was. And this transitions to a walkway here. So we had a few transition boards here come in, and then it comes into this approximately 60 foot walkway, 60 foot by 6 feet wide. And again, the framing was existing, and we did our repairs, what we needed to do, and then we just decked all along this. Kind of looks like a boardwalk to me. Turned out real nice, and it's a pretty unique detail. You don't really see these kind of things too often in residential projects. The last major feature of this deck is the large staircase. This is a pretty crazy one, with a midway and lower landing, 2 lower landings really. Fortunately in our case, we were able to, when we removed the old stairs, we actually could just trace the old stringer onto the new stringers, because you want the rise and the run and all the math to work out. So we were able to just trace that on. I cut all the new stringers, and then we installed those, wrapped them up in cedar. All our risers and fascia are cedar on this job, as well as the post wraps. Some of them, the post wraps, we were actually able to keep that, and then you'll see some other ones throughout the job. They're unpainted. Those are the ones we had to replace because they were rotted. But yeah, cedar risers, cedar wraps, and the mahogany treads, of course. So pretty insane looking staircase, and a pretty unique feature on this project. So I wanted to talk about some details about this railing. Pretty unique railing system here. The client designed this entire thing, and this was his idea. He wanted to use a cedar 2x4 for your top and bottom rails, and in order to attach those to the existing 4x4 post, we use something called a shadow rail connector. And basically what it is it's like a tongue and groove system. One side screws into the post, one side screws into the 2x4, and it just slots into place. The difficulty with this project was, because we had black aluminum balusters, obviously this is custom made, so we had to go through and custom mark the spacing for the balusters on every single railing section on this deck. It has 50 railing sections, so we cut the 2x4s, laid them out, measured the space, figured out how much the spacing was on the sides, and then the spacing from center to center per baluster is 4 inches. So once you know that, we're able to lay out all these railings, get the shadow rail connectors installed, and slide them into place. In addition to that, what made this project interesting was, as I said, this was a repair, and the 4x4s were one of the only components that we left in place. So the majority of these 4x4s were already here, and it was going to be a very difficult thing to replace them. I told the client that we could, but there's obviously a budget, and we have to stick to that budget. In this case, the 4x4 posts were notched. Fortunately, they were not rotted, but as many people know if you're watching this video, having a notched 4x4 post is not ideal. It's against code. It used to be done, which is why it was done on this project, but now today you're not allowed to do that. We wanted to make sure that the 4x4s were strong enough, even though they were notched. So what we did was we installed this scab piece to the back. What that does is, because when you notch a 4x4 post, you take 1.5 inches off of the framing side, which is the side that's resting on the deck, we're adding that 1.5 inches back to the back of the post here, which is adding the meat essentially on the back that's stopping that post now from bending. I'm attached here with 2 4-inch lag screws that go right into the post, and here on some of them we did 4-inch lag screws. If a post was on a corner or an end, we did lag screws, but if the posts are in the field, we did a through bolt, and that way the post and the scab piece is positively connected to the deck framing. And that's super important, because 4x4 posts that are notched are a definite weak point, but we would have had to take those out. We would have had to route them, because all of them have electric low voltage wiring inside, so all of them would have to be custom, and then we would have to have rewrapped all of them. So it would have been another 2 days of labor most likely, because there's 50 of those to make and then to reattach them. So fortunately they were not rotted. Some of the wraps were rotted, which we replaced, and then we added that 2x4 scab on the back of each post, made it extremely strong. They do not move, they do not budge, and we're satisfied with the result. That's going to be it for this deck project. This is a pretty crazy one. 1,100 square feet more or less of hardwood decking. Absolutely killer on the saw blades, killer custom work. Had to use that end grain sealer on every single cut on the deck, and it was absolutely insane from start to finish. Took us a little over 2 weeks, and happy to have this one done, I'm not gonna lie. So really nice, homeowners thrilled, and we're on to the next one. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for more.